for some Bengals news. At the Growler, we got you. Hot takes, interviews from your host, Paul Day Jr.
All right, welcome into the first ever edition of Dey Nights. Paulina Jr. here with you with the Growler team. Mark Shalafu, Charlie Goldsmith, Jay Morrison. What is going on, boys? How we doing?
Happy Sunday.
So much to get into. So much is happening.
There's so much happening, but yet so little is happening. That's really kind of the problem I think that people are having right now is there's a lot happening and not a lot happening for the Cincinnati Bengals. We has anybody not gotten paid? Has anybody not is there a position that hasn't been reset yet today? We're going to get into a bunch of stuff here. I think we're going to talk about how the Bengals have been. Can they be the biggest losers of the day when they didn't really even do anything yet? Is that possible?
Yeah, of course it's possible. They're at least going to make a run for it right now.
We're learning how much the Bengals really do love deadlines. They love a good deadline. They love going right up until the edge. The Bengals are the kid who does the I'm not touching you, but the touching you is the deadline. And that's where we find ourselves, 15 hours before free agency and tampering officially starts.
Yeah, there's a lot of wondering what the heck's going to happen next. Let me just throw this out here right now, and we'll start with really the bombshell of the day from a Bengals perspective comes pretty early, and that is Myles Garrett really maybe it wasn't always about winning. Maybe it wasn't totally about winning, guys. Like, it wasn't just I just got to play for a winner, or you give me $40 million a year. And then, okay, well, maybe we can win here. Oh, it actually makes it a lot harder to win here. I didn't realize that. Okay. That said, so $40 million a year for Myles Garrett, which brings up this quote from Duke Tobin about Jamar Chase. He is going to end up being the number one paid non-quarterback in the league. Well, that doesn't feel so good now. That's that, if there was any debate about the floor of the Jamar Chase deal, there isn't now, because you said it and you got to kind of live up to it. And that's what it is. Jay, what did you make when you saw Myles Garrett, $40 million, and knowing what that means for the Bengals on a couple of fronts, but just specifically on the Jamar front?
Yeah, I mean, I was stunned. I didn't expect that to happen. I really thought that Myles was going to dig in and insist on a trade. There was a report that he had turned down a meeting with ownership up there, and so I was stunned. And it's not good news for the Bengals, number one, because Myles is going to stay in the division all these extra years. For Jamar, I don't know. I mean, Duke said he'll be the highest paid. He said it before this deal came down. So does it carry weight? Does it carry over? But I always kind of felt like Jamar could. We talked about it last week. He could still be in that 40 million range. I don't know that it necessarily affects what the Bengals are going to offer Jamar. They've got a price, and I don't think Myles. I mean, maybe Jamar is going to be like, well, you said it. He's going to hold him to that. But I don't think it's a huge deal as far as what Jamar is going to make. But I do think it's a huge deal as far as keeping that guy. It felt like maybe he was going to be out of the division, and now he's not.
I think it's really important to keep in mind, why did Duke Tobin say publicly that they plan to make Jamar the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL? And that's because of how contentious might be the best word it felt when Jamar, particularly in that stretch where he returned to practice and Zach Taylor said he was back, and then he left practice, and then he showed up late that one day and made sure to slow down his walk so all of us media folks could get the up-close visual of Jamar showing up late to practice. Duke Tobin said they were ready to do it because the Bengals wanted to show a sense of aggressiveness, a sense of being ready to dive into some, again, to use the word aggressive territory, and then to continue to be reminded that, I mean, it's not the world we lived in 10 minutes ago from that perspective. Aggressiveness only goes so far until you get it done, because aggressiveness will continue to be outmatched and outbid Tobin was trying to say, we're trying, but there's no trying until a deal's done, and there's always someone trying harder, and the Browns trying harder with Garrett changed the whole market with Chase. It looks like, does it have a ripple effect with Higgins? Does it have a ripple effect on the whole cap structure heading into free agency? The Bengals are kind of almost caught because of their dedication to showing that, yes, we were in fact aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, at this point now, that I think the Chase thing almost, it's like, okay, we're just gonna have to eat that and pay whatever it is. The fallout to me, comes more in, okay, this stuff has to get done with T. You've got you have to find a way to get the T thing done beyond the fact that Garrett has reset the market and the amount of money that they've lost by waiting on this. It adds, it's like by the minute. In fact, right now, are they losing money right now as we speak? Who's
Yes.
going to be the next person, to go and reset it? Because what happens? Well, the Steelers acquire DK Metcalf. Okay. And we don't know the structure and details. I always get nervous about when you see, $33 million, or what is it really when we get down to it? The bottom line is, though, I mean, the money goes up. And so if you're T. Higgins tonight, and maybe you were like, hey, a deal's close, and then you see something come up that pops the market up, why wouldn't you say, how about a little bit more? Why wouldn't you say the market sure looks different right now? And so that potentially is what's going on behind the scenes. The bottom line is, the longer you wait, this is what happens. And the fact that you've now waited years. Charlie, have you gone and done the math on if they just would have done it at the first possible instance, what the difference would be to what it's going to end up being now, even assuming they get Jamar and T done this year?
I mean, what would it have been? 25 for Jamar. Now it's 40. Would have been 22, 20 for T. Now it's where it is. And, specifically
Jesse Bates.
I want to get into this more too in a bit, but like, they can still get out of this by getting these deals done and just restructuring them later, either now or in the future. At some point, the Bengals are going to have to guarantee money. And again, I kind of want to go back to that point in a bit, but they're caught now having been beaten by their own strategy and now having to take more money out of their wallets because of it.
There's no doubt. I mean, at this point, the waiting is left what it, we know what they have to do, right? To me, this is, we Jay and I were talking about this the other day on the timing. We did a growler bet, which I'm not accepting submissions on the growler bet anymore, by the way. We did a growler bet on what day T would sign. And to me, it almost, I talk tomorrow morning, like it felt like 11:59 a.m. It'd be the only Bengals way to wait until just before free agency starts to get T done, or they feel like they're close enough that they're going to hold the line on whatever the end game is there for them and wait and see, knowing kind of about where they're going to end up spending. Maybe they just go forward in free agency knowing that, and it ends up being, God forbid, July, and we're all still sitting here going live on July 15th, wondering what the hell is going on. Let's, for everyone's sake, hope it doesn't come to that. But, when does that happen? You just at some point have to just bite it. And I feel like that's where they're at. And if they do, who cares? Like, at this point, you have they have plenty of money. They have plenty of money to spend, especially if they're going to go where they're going to go with Trey Hendrickson, which we'll get into where that stands in a minute. Like, you just have to bite the bullet before it keeps getting worse on you, just when you think it wouldn't. And there were certainly ripple effects from everything that happened today.
I have a question for all three of you, I guess, because from a fan standpoint, it's not a great day. There's a lot happening, and it's not a very fun time to be a Bengals fan on social media. Is there anything that happened today that has materially changed what you guys expect to happen with T and Jamar? Like, or should I just calm down a little bit at this point?
I mean, I don't think the T thing is, the Bengals have all the leverage. They've got the franchise tag, and I don't know how much that's going to affect even DK signing what he did. I don't know how much that's going to affect that. It is interesting. I've got some numbers here. First 3 years of their career, DK Metcalf, 216 catches, T, 215. DK, 3,170 yards, T, 3,018. DK had 29 touchdowns, T, 19. very similar numbers. They're not the same kind of guys. It's a little bit of a different situation. It's not great that that's another dude coming into the division, but I don't know that that signing had a huge effect just because the Bengals do have the tag. They've got the leverage there. Yeah, you want to get T done, and at some point, maybe that is the deal. You just have to at some point come off of whatever that number you have a value. The Bengals don't overpay. At some point, you have to overpay. He's too important. They have to go up a notch or two to get that deal done. And I still do think it's going to happen in the next couple of days, like Paul was saying. Paul went with tomorrow as his date. I went with Wednesday. I'd be really surprised if it doesn't get done in the next couple of days. But yeah, the DK Metcalf signing, it changes things a little bit, but the Bengals still have the leverage there with the tag.
Here's what I've been thinking about all day. First, I'll start off saying something controversial. Like, the Bengals can still get out of this. They can still get T done tomorrow morning. They signed Jamar. They have the room to get a guard, an end, a tackle, a linebacker, and a safety, and enter next year with your stars locked up and with a better roster than you had in 2024. But until the Bengals do that, I don't think we can ignore a conversation that typically we don't have as much on this podcast specifically, but the conversation that goes on every city corner and in every bar in the city of Cincinnati and the national narrative, which is what everyone's saying right now, which is what does this reflect about the Bengals' track record of being cheap? Because right now what we've seen today is we've seen the price tag for Jamar and for T get more expensive. And if the Bengals, again, are willing to pay that, are willing to guarantee money up front, are willing to make up for that, like I said earlier, by make up for how much the prices have gone up, by restructuring those deals later, by guaranteeing more money down the road, all's well that ends well. The Bengals can end this at the end of the day fine with the same plan that they had in 2022. But as they get closer and closer to this deadline, and as the price continues to raise, the natural question is, are they willing to spend it? Are they willing to guarantee and structure contracts in this way? Or will they do what they've been doing for the last several years? Will they stay passive? It almost reminds me of, like, this is a true story. When I was 7, I went to Funtown Splashtown, my first water park, and I was all excited. I was going to ride the rides, and I talked a big game, and I had a strategy for the day, and I was going to go down the big ride. And then I got to the top, and that looked a lot higher than I thought it would. And it's a classic example of either you go down it and prove yourself right and validate what you had been saying, or you don't go down it, and that changes how everyone talks about you for the rest of your life. Because the Bengals, if they get this deal done, I went down the slide.
No, you never recovered. You didn't go, did you? And people have been hounding you ever since, and you've not let it go.
If the Bengals get this done, it represents that they've changed and that they've broken precedent. But if not, it pivots what the rest of Burrow's career looks like. And that's why we're having a live podcast tonight, because it's such an important moment.
Yeah, I think we should stop all this Bengals talk and focus on Charlie versus the slide. I think I need to go deeper into this.
We need to see him do the slide today. Just
Head first.
Would you do it today? I need that. I'm with you. I'm with you. This is Bengals versus themselves, and we talked about. It's been kind of interesting when you consider the build up to this, where it's all been all sides drawing the line in the sand to this point, right? It's never been deeper. It's never been more obvious. And everybody on both sides of the line has been pointing up at the front office saying it's on you guys to get this done. Everybody wants the same things. Okay. T and Jamar, and everybody wants to see that happen here. And now let's understand that being the case and what holds in the balance. I think T holds in the balance right now. Like, Jamar can go down the line. I think they know where they're going to have to go with that. Just getting this thing done and not letting it drag on is what hangs in the balance down. Like you said, they can come out clean. No one will care. Like, no one will care if they overpay. They cost themselves some money, but so what? T and Jamar are still here. That's what really matters at the end of the day. Now, the Trey Hendrickson thing, we have this kind of becoming the trade is still hanging out. They're still trying to execute this. We know some of the teams that are interested. We've seen the market change even just today, as you've seen edge rushers getting all kinds of money, with Myles Garrett at the top of that list, but he's not the only one. I still think that's the other thing that's hanging out here is what can they get back, and are they, because this is another Bengals national narrative thing that bites them. Stink at trading, right? Like, because they don't want to do a trade unless they feel like they totally won. And do they end up just here holding it and fighting with Trey in the meantime because they can't get a trade done before it's time to go into free agency? Another one to keep an eye on as we sit here and watch. And will they sit there and point at Washington and say, until you give us 29, we're not doing anything, even if it's cutting off our nose to spite our face, right? Or will they just, you know what, let's take a deal for 40 something from somebody or whatever it ends up being, or figure out whatever that is. That to me is just as interesting as whatever happens with T right now, because there's these two things that have been the case that have caused this team problems over the years that are both on the deadline as we sit here and speak on YouTube.
Is it good news that nothing has come down with Trey so far? I mean, it was a few days ago they gave him the option to go seek a trade. Remember when the Chiefs told Joe Thuney to go look, and boom, instantly it happens. And nobody is, I mean, people are spending money like crazy, and nobody has stepped up to offer Trey a trade and extend kind of deal. If they don't get it done by tomorrow, does that mean that it's kind of off the table, a trade that, you know, he's either going to play on the number that he on his contract this year, or they'll work out an extension much lower than what Trey thought his value was worth?
What I keep going back to is, you know, all this conversation about the Eagles and, you know, coming from Joe Burrow included, a conversation at the Combine up when Howie Roseman, the Eagles GM, was on the podium. He said, a lot of the key to success in the NFL these days is identifying who your guys are as early as possible. And again, we reach a deadline pivotal moment for the Bengals right now, where once it hits noon on Monday, does Malcolm Kuntz fly off the board? Does Josh Sweat fly off the board? Does Dayo Odangbo fly off the board? Does Chase Young fly off the board? Like, there are only so many of those guys who no one's going to replace Trey Hendrickson, but there are only 4-ish guys on this free agent market who you could comfortably put the top of your defensive end rotation to start next season and not feel like you have a complete liability. And the Bengals, sure, or maybe they take another approach and get 2 of them. They get, you know, Pat Jones and Azeez Ojulari, sure, but there are only like 6 more of those next tier guys. And when you look at what Harold Landry, who wasn't even on my Bengals specific board, got today, what, $9 million a year, like, the money is moving. Teams are being aggressive. Teams are selecting their guys and taking contingency plans away for you. And as Howie Roseman said, the best plans in the NFL are contingency plans. And the Bengals, you know, for the first time in a while, have to act as the forward-moving piece on that. And that adds to me what I see as another deadline, which is tomorrow making a decision on Hendrickson, or it does cost you flexibility and contingency and options down the road, whichever way you go.
I mean, they're not, no matter what, I mean, they're not going to be in the Milton Williams market that, you know, even trading Trey, like they're not going to be up there at the top of that market to set that off. But, you know, I think it does probably kick them up a tier from where you would have thought they were going to be. And like, it could be a Malcolm Kuntz or whoever, like whoever that is the apple of their eye, whether a defensive tackle or an edge or whatever there. But you're right. You miss. I mean, it's already started. Like it used to be that things started early on Monday at noon, and now they just start on Sunday morning, apparently. And we just got to reset the structure of how all this works, because you have this, you know, what's obvious now is the league reacting to a really poor free agency class and having to be aggressive in other directions, whether it be re-signing their own, whether it be performing trades, extensions, all of this stuff. And so when you have all of that happening, it has put everything into fast forward. And that's the frustration, obviously, was the Bengals are sitting here not really in fast forward mode. They did do some things, though. Let's talk about things that they have done before we continue to go into what they have not done. So they did this weekend. They signed Mike Gesicki, 3 years, $25.5 million. You got about half of that in year one. A great deal. I mean, in terms of an important piece to bring back, he's the perfect T complement, right? It's like you're buying the 2 of them together, because Gesicki is insurance when T has a nagging hamstring that keeps him out for 2 to 3 weeks, and you can get by just fine. They did that a bunch this year. They found how to use him in that role to help make up for it. And he's awesome when everybody's doubling Jamar. And you wrote about this, Charlie, about the double answer. They've been searching for that for a while. When they go double on Jamar and T, they didn't have anybody that was winning consistently. And man, you saw that this year, especially down the stretch. when they really had it cooking. It was a lot of them really figuring out how to use Gesicki when the other two were on the field. Because before that, this season, he had mostly had his big games and his big usage when T was hurt. And then all of a sudden, late in the season, when they had them both out there, they started figuring out how to use Gesicki with that group, and it really helps take them to the next level.
All of a sudden, you have Damari Mathis matched up on Mike Gesicki, which basically might as well be me on Mike Gesicki. I studied this tight end class, and the guys who I pegged as the buy low Mike Gesicki replacements, the next Mike Gesicki, were Tommy Tremble and Hooper, and they both got basically Mike Gesicki money this offseason. So for the Bengals to get Gesicki on the value they did, I saw as a positive win. And this ties back to the double thing I mentioned. What I'm hearing, the direction, the vision for this offense. The Bengals are preparing to build an offense that has Jamar and T as a part of it. And the huge focus is about complementing and rounding that out with guys who can help attack double-double, like Mike Gesicki can, with the versatility, with the one-on-one reliability, with the separation, with the yak skills, with the flexibility of Andre Yoshivas as a blocker, as a slot guy, as an outside guy, with hopefully one of Burton Williams or Charlie Jones is able to give you something as a go ball runner this year at some point of the season. And then now we turn to an Eric All type, which is probably a draft guy that you pick because of the traits, inline, athletic. Can you kind of recreate some of that? That's the vision for this offense this season. It has T, it has Gesicki, it has those pieces that I mentioned. They all fit very snugly together. And we saw that last year when the Bengals were throwing the ball all over the lot and they were unstoppable and they had two terrible offensive guards. So round out the guard position, do a couple more easy things on offense, and then this is truly the best offense in the league, or one of them, if they can get those answers right.
I mean, Charlie, you said it. You looked at the tight ends. Does Gesicki get more money elsewhere if he doesn't sign with the Bengals and he goes ahead and goes into free agency?
Let's see who's on the board, and actually deleted my tight ends from the spreadsheet because the Bengals aren't looking there anymore. Engram, what he was going to make $10 million a year, and he got cut. Engram's probably a much better version of Gesicki. I mean, you've seen Jacksonville run their offense through Evan Engram, so it probably would have been this 7 to 8 range around the league. Right? I think he's a better player than Tommy Tremble and Austin Hooper. So, to me, again, $7 million is $8 million, 8.5 or whatever it was, is right where I expected that to be. Not going much higher because, again, even Engram wasn't worth that $10 million range.
Yeah. We also have Cody Ford back, and I know this is like the ultimate free agency thing that fans love to do, is get really mad when someone signs that is like someone that you need on your 53, but he's not what you're looking for. I actually kind of feel bad for like Tanner Hudson and Jackson Kirkland. They sign, it's like this big moment. They get to smile and they've got their their wife or girlfriend or family or whatever there with them. And it's like a big moment for them. And then the social comments are just like, you guys suck. Why don't you sign T? What the hell? Right. And it's like, can they just, they're players too. Can they just have their moment? Like, you need 53. At some point they have to sign them. It's I know it's not what you want right now, but can we just let them have a minute? And just say, hey, congratulations, Tanner. Good for you. People would have thought that you've been out of the league for a while now, and here you are still going. Good for you. Like, no, we don't get to have that. But we had it with Cody Ford today. And so people were sitting here saying, okay, Cody Ford, what the hell are they doing? He can't be the starter. We've kind of gone over this a lot. So I don't want to kind of be too repetitive, but now that he's officially back, really at whatever the number is, which we don't know yet, he's not the starter. Okay, he would be in competition, and that's fine. Like, he's part of the Royal Rumble that's probably going to happen on one side, between him and Kirkland and Volson and maybe a pick, and then the other side is probably a free agent. We don't, you never know what's going to happen in free agency. They could miss on getting a guard in free agency and end up having to use a premium pick and assume that guy's going to be a starter day one, and maybe have to go other directions. But I would assume there's going to be some form of free agent on one side and some form of Royal Rumble probably on the other side. Or maybe the free agent on one side isn't as good as they want him to be, so there's kind of a double Royal Rumble happening. There's definitely rumbling. I know that much. And Cody Ford is not like written down right now starting guard. That's not the case.
No.
I know some fans freak out when they see that he's signed back. I think they liked him. he's a really solid number 6. And if he's your 5, it's not the worst thing that's ever happened to you. You know, you want to be better than
Which
that.
has happened. They've had
Which
the
has
worst thing that's ever happened to them.
You remember? They went to the Super Bowl that year, believe it or not. Yeah, that was kind of, I just think it's worth reiterating on Cody Ford, because I know that gets people very visceral, like, oh, and they're not going to protect Joe. It's not quite that.
I mean, I think it's a really good signing with Cody Ford, because he can go out and play tackle if you need him to. Yes, you don't want him starting 17 games, but he's a quality, like you said, Paul, a very good number 6, and he's been here for a while. He knows the other guys. So much of that O line is about camaraderie and chemistry, and so I thought that was a really good signing. And I get it, where people are, all they want to hear is the T news, the Jamar news, the Trey. But you have to make these moves too, and it makes sense to kind of not clear the deck, but get some of these. It's almost like a rubber stamp move. Like, you knew they were going to bring these guys back, get those out of the way, and then go into tomorrow and make the moves everybody wants you to make. I'm with you, Paul. I feel bad for those guys, because I think they are important signings. They're not win a Super Bowl kind of signing. Maybe they are. I mean, if they have an injury and Cody Ford steps in there and plays well, it's a huge deal. But Cody, and I think Jackson Kirkland's a sneaky signing too. They were really high on him before he got hurt last year. And it's not, again, he's not a guy that's going to step in and be a starter, but he's going to be in the mix, and he's going to be in that rumble. And you want that. That's what you want in training camp, is these guys. You want massive competition. You want these guys fighting each other for jobs. And that's what O-line's about. You need the depth. This team has for so long not been good on the top end. You're hoping that they can figure that out and get the top end right there. And then you've got the depth behind them, because injuries happen on the O-line. It just does. A couple years ago, they played all 5 guys played all 17 games. That's the first time the Bengals had that happen since 1985. So getting these guys in place, it is a 53-man roster. You have to line everything up. And I get it why people are upset, but these are really good signings.
I was going back to my Cody Ford notes today, which aren't nearly as long as my Joe Burrow notes, but there are Cody Ford notes. and the first one was when they signed him. Kind of what I wrote at the time was, finally the Bengals get an experienced backup offensive lineman. Like, they had been rolling with your guys on rookie deals, your Carmens, your Hills, your Adenijis, your Deontay Smiths. Like, those have been the backups, guys who had never played in the league, and guys who on top of that looked bad in training camp. And Cody Ford was like the departure of that. And as we saw when Cody stepped in and was fine, like, that matters. And every offensive line needs a Cody Ford. Now, I don't think there are a lot of like guys who have started who are free agent guards. When you look at the cross section of what would fit the Bengals: pass protection, durable, tough, preference towards winning experience. Like, there aren't as many of those guys as there, like, it's a smaller proportion of the list. Like, Makari and Scherf are my favorite 2. Fries and Banks will probably get paid higher than I'd go, but they're on this part of the list. Ben Bridinson, Kevin Zeitler, like Mekhi Becton, I think is more of a run blocker or run blocking focused guy. So, like, there aren't a ton of these guys. I think the Bengals have to get one of those guys, one of those names that I mentioned, continuing to learn the lesson that Alex Kappa showed you, the importance and value of investing in a guard position, which the Bengals didn't do before they got Kappa. Ford, like you said, Paul's a good piece to have for that other spot in that competition. What I don't want to see happen is offensive guard be this year's defensive tackle, and you go into the draft and it's day 2 of the draft and it's like, oh boy, we need 2. And then that shapes your whole draft strategy. That's what I don't want to see this year.
No one wants to see that. How are you hanging in there, Mark? Like, are you, I'm looking at the YouTube comments now, and thanks to everybody that's watching here on YouTube and commenting here. People are saying that we're not helping. This is just people, they're still crashing out. Still not good. People are still in a dark place. Look, I at this point, I recommend drinking. Like, I just feel like just take a breather, have a nice little night, have a nightcap. There you go. And then wake up tomorrow is a new day. You know, the sun will come out. There's a chance that things go better. What do you care? What do Bengals fans care if they overpay? Right? Like, as long as they sign them,
of
right?
Course.
Not your money.
I mean,
as long as they sign them is what matters, and they still have plenty of time to sign them, and still have plenty of time to sign the players that matter. They haven't missed out on anybody, if that makes any sense. And so I don't know. Do you feel like this is not helping you?
Yeah, it's helped a little bit. Maybe it's always good to hang out with you guys on a Sunday night. That's always fun. But I have that same attitude of like, all right, if you overpay your guys, you have to do it because you took that gamble and you lost. You had a chance to get Jamar at a lower number. You had a chance to get T at a lower number. You blew it, and now you just kind of have to eat that and suffer the consequences and go forward. You got to do something. I was on social media too much today. That was my problem, and I'm kind of curious. Like, how much do you guys either like or hate this time of year? Because there's so much floating around social media. Do you guys have to dig into every like viral tweet? No, is this guy really in town? Is this picture legit? What did this guy's mom tweet? Do I have to investigate this now? Like, how frustrating is that for you guys?
Well, at least now it usually gets resolved within like a day or two. See, like when it happens in February, we'll spend a week on a hat emoji, right? Like me. But when it happens, like look, we'll know soon about what it has to do with whether it's vague tweets or family Instagram posts, or people are sending me right now like something from someone's Instagram story. What does it mean? Like I look, I don't know. Trey Hendrickson appears to be a very nice man posing in a hospital next to a nice boy. I don't know that means that he's signing anything. Okay, it's okay for him to just be visiting a kid in the hospital. So I'm with you. Like it's a little much. You can't read into everything.
No,
this happens every year. By the way, this is the moment between now and like whenever the first thing happens, and sometimes they do Karras and Kappa immediately. Sometimes it takes like 2 days of fans absolutely losing their minds, and then all of a sudden it's Tuesday night at 10 o'clock, and 3 signings pop off the board, and they're like, oh, okay, I guess they were working on that, the whole time. Maybe we should just calm down a little bit. So I just tend to be like, you try to keep the perspective of previous years and seeing the big picture. But it's a little different this year, obviously, with the stuff that happened today affecting the deals for Chase and Higgins. But like, you do have to give it time. They haven't missed out on anything yet. Their job's gotten harder, but they haven't missed out on anything.
I also think that like you really do have to see the market, and sometimes the best answer to something right now is we'll see. Like the conversation that we would have had on the first or the Sunday before free agency and tampering in 2023, coming off the 2022 season, we could have had Duke Tobin on this call, given the most honest, direct podcast interview of all time. But Orlando Brown wasn't in their plans then, and the market changed how it did, and they got in touch, or Orlando got in touch with them. Orlando took less to play in Cincinnati, and that's how free agency works. Again, big differences now with it being your own guys, but obviously, like we've seen today, moving pieces outside of your control. And this is where a front office has to, now you analyze the front office and you see what they do, and you either criticize it or praise it and see how well they can do their jobs.
I mean, I referenced this earlier. We talked about we had the growler bet on when T would sign. How many guys do they agree to terms with before they get T done? Like, does T have to go first, or can they kind of put him to the side and start just throwing money at guys and getting things done before even T gets done?
I mean, if they're close enough, if they at least know what it's going to take, like whether they're fighting and haggling for details or a decimal point being moved here or there, is when they know where they have to go with T and where it probably ends up, even if they're trying to get something else right now. Like, and so you can move forward with that understanding because he's stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And they're using that to their advantage. He's stuck here. He's not going to go to some other team. They can get the deal done at any point within. They know where it's going to end up. Now, it's just helpful for everybody for it to get done sooner. But still, that's I don't look at it at that as a problem. Can I go to some targets here before we wrap up for tomorrow? By the way, Josh Allen just gets. By the way, in case your day wasn't getting worse, you can just be a couple years into an extension and have 4 left. He had 4 years left, and they just redid basically tore up the whole thing, and now he gave him $330 million and $250 guaranteed. Is Burrow going to do that to us? We haven't even gotten rid of these other 2 yet off the books, and already we got to start thinking about that too. Things are happening fast, but all that's happening. I want to talk about targets for tomorrow. Jay, when we look at what's left, because a lot did get taken off the table today. There was a ton of movement, just Josh Allen's big deal, the DK Metcalf deal we talked about, Garrett we talked about, Devontae Adams goes to the Rams, the Chiefs re-sign Nick Bolton, the Patriots sign Harold Landry for 3 years and $43.5 million. Jamian Sherwood, the Jets linebacker that was going to be a hot ticket probably in free agency, gets $15 million per from the Jets. Ernest Jones, another linebacker, he gets $11 million per from the Seahawks. Seahawks also brought back Jarran Reed. The Vikings gave Aaron Jones 2 years and $20 million. So we saw specifically at linebacker a lot of movement, but what are you targeting and looking at for what's still around tomorrow, Jay?
I mean, I think it starts with guard, and we've talked about it. Makari from Baltimore, it just feels like a great fit. Go get a guy, a guy that you can plug in as your starter as one of the guard spots. And then, I don't know, I'd like to see him get a linebacker, but you don't necessarily have to do that right off the bat. But a guy we talked about earlier, Jamian Sherwood from the Jets, he's good against the run. He's good against the pass. He's a guy that is not going to break the bank. And then the number one guy, and you guys talked about him on your show last week, Onwuzurike from Detroit. I mean, you could get those three guys tomorrow and not spend a crazy amount of money and feel like pretty good about filling three holes that you need to round out this roster. And I think that's where it starts, is getting guys with a lot of upside that aren't going to be break the bank guys.
It's been a wild day, Jay. Sherwood went back to ended up going back to the Jets.
Oh,
actually.
did he? Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that.
It's been a lot happening. It's honestly, it's been spinning a little too fast.
So go get Dodson from Buffalo, because the Buffalo already signed another linebacker. So that's another guy that is he could be a good fit. He could be a good Jermaine Pratt replacement.
Yeah.
I look at where there's the least supply, which is those higher tier or reliable starting plug and play pass rushing defensive tackles. That's Onwuzurike. That's Wharton. Maybe that's Poona Ford or Adam Butler, but that might be a bit too rich, or maybe counting on them a bit too much as pass rushers. I look for a Hendrickson decision, because if you're going to get one of those higher tier defensive ends, it's maybe now or never for a guy like Deo Odangbo, who might be one of the bells of the ball tomorrow. And then a position we haven't talked as much on this podcast about, but Geno Stone's been kind of his own little mystery box, and I've established what I call the Geno Smith Meridian, which is, are you a free safety on the board better than Geno Smith, or a free safety on the board worse than Geno Smith? And I only think that Cam Bynum and Justin Simmons are the only truly, or Geno Stone, I'm sorry.
Geno Smith also in the news. You don't even need to mention the fact that a starting quarterback got traded from
the Geno
Seattle to the Raiders.
The Geno Stone Meridian. Are you better than Geno Stone? Are you worse than Geno Stone? The only safeties I think are better, free safeties I think are better than Geno Stone. I forgot Javon Holland, who's probably out of the Bengals tier anyway. He might be one of the best free agents on the market. The only free safeties I think are really better than Geno Stone are Cam Bynum and Justin Simmons. Shout out Ifeatu Melifonwu, who's like maybe the most fun third safety in the NFL, and I'd make that work if I could get my hands on him if I'm the Bengals. But they have to make a decision tomorrow at safety too, because Simmons and Bynum could fly off the board really quickly, and then you have Geno Stone as your starter in 2025,
or Xavier Watts.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's the other thing. That's the other thing, is it pigeonholes you in the draft of, man, need to find a safety that could potentially overcome it. Because if you're not totally sold, and we talked about that coming out of the combine, you didn't hear Geno Stone's name used a lot. You heard Jordan Battle's name used a ton. But Geno Stone did not get a lot of discussion time. And we spent a lot of time discussing this roster with Bengals brass. I'm with you. I think you want to try to get guard and get linebacker taken care of. The way those guys move, there's a bunch of them, but the way they move today suggests they might move fast again tomorrow. And so if you have a target there, whether it's somebody even in tier 2 or tier 3, because some of those guys were moving today too, then you probably want to just go ahead and act and hop on that and do whatever you're going to do with Jermaine Pratt, whether that's they're waiting to trade or release him until they actually sign somebody, or whatever that is. That feels like it's certainly hanging out there in the abyss right now. Numbers on Cody Ford coming down as we record. Looks like 2 years, $6 million. So I mean, a very a little bit of a raise for him, but very similar to what he was kind of playing under last year. Low money. This is not some big deal, $3 million per year or so. Nothing where you're like, oh man, what's going on? Why'd they pay Cody Ford $12 million? No, it's kind of similar where you would expect it to be.
I still can't believe they paid Bobby Hart.
Dude. I mean, you know what? Bobby Hart, he's around. Bobby Hart is around.
He's still
kicking around. If you want to bring him back, there's still plenty of time. All right. That's tomorrow, and we'll be monitoring all that. And who knows, maybe there's still plenty of time tonight for some late night stuff to go down. And then so tomorrow we'll be back with more. Who Dey Nights will kick off again tomorrow. And then we'll see what else we got going on there. We're going to be doing this every night at 9:00 live. And then, of course, it's up on the feed. We'll get it posted up onto the feed for people that are just listening at home and all the audio. But if you're in the mix, I hope everybody's hanging in out there. You know what I mean? Like, don't let it get you down. Don't let it beat you up too bad. It's just free agency. They'll be okay. Joe's not giving up yet. He's like, is Burrow trying to he wants out. He wants out. I know it. Not yet. Maybe tomorrow will be the day where things go better than they went today.
They already started giving him some of it. Mike is in need, and they got Gesicki back, so they've already started on the shopping list. So he can't be that mad.
They're checking the boxes off for him right now. I don't remember him saying Cody Ford was a need, but it could have been. It could have been. We just didn't want to say it out loud. If he would have started stomping around Radio Row for Cody Ford, I would have.
Cody's a need, yeah.
Cody's that was his main objective. Was to get Cody re-signed. But maybe that's just taking some time, but you can go check those boxes. We'll be back for more. Tomorrow night on that. On our. But by the way, I didn't get to bring up. So a listener sent this in. They're like, Who Dey Night sounds great, but what about this? And they sent this Baywatch Nights. I was like, I need people. If you're watching this, okay, you're out here and you're good with like Photoshop or whatever. I want the four of us in here. I don't want to lose Lou Rawls and the Hoff and Angie Harmon. I'd like them to stay if possible, or at least the Hoff should stay. Maybe we could get Jay with his mullet with glasses on to be the Hoff. But Baywatch Nights, which Charlie, you don't remember Baywatch Nights?
Is that David Hasselhoff from the end of the SpongeBob movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
Get out of here.
SpongeBob movie.
They went Baywatch, and I feel like if anybody wants to create a Who Dey Nights here, my favorite part of this is right down there in the bottom right corner. It points out the 3 DVD set that you can get with this when you get Baywatch Nights. Those back in the day would remember such things, but it's all there. Somebody go make that for us if someone wants to. I'm here for it. We'll spread the word. But we'll be back tomorrow night, 9:00 on the YouTube channel. Make sure you're following that, subscribed, and everything, and you'll be notified when we're going. Maybe it'll be a busy day tomorrow. Maybe it won't. Maybe you'll just have a bigger drink in front of you. Either way, we'll be back. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Have a good night. We'll talk to you tomorrow.